I met Thomas Patchin and his wife Paige from Real Property Management Peace in Las Vegas, Nevada, at a maintenance workshop being held by Real Property Management in Long Beach, California, and instantly hit it off. Super welcoming people, really warm, kind-hearted, laid back, very easy to have a conversation with. And then we started talking about the future of technology and the current state of property management. And I was like, man, I really got to have you on, because Thomas has this really sharp approach to where relationships and technology intersect. We really start off in this podcast talking about his sales process. He's got a super high close rate because he has this extremely relationship driven sale, and he shares that kind of formula with us to start. And then we start talking about his adoption of technology in order to enable him to use relationships, and end on some really, really, one of the best ideas of where the industry is going that I've already spoken to my wife about a couple of times since this conversation. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation with Thomas. Great guy. Totally suggest you connect with him. Enjoy Thomas Patchin. Welcome to the Property Management Frame Breakers podcast. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez, and I am here to introduce you to the folks in the property management space that have broken the frame of what you may believe was possible. This podcast is presented by Vendoroo. It is your all-in-one AI solution for resolving your maintenance needs. Let's go. Is there anything that you also think deeply about that you'd love to get some content out on?
Yeah, I mean, your communication about, connections and the ability to understand that it's about people and that it's about communication and that it's about connections. The reason why people work with us is because we connect. If I connect with somebody, we close 70% of the people we talk to because we connect, and we are able to put people in a scenario where they're comfortable, where they know we're not just trying to sell them, where, I say, look, if we're not right for you, that's okay. I'm not upset. And, if you want the down and dirty is cheap, that's okay. So for me, it's about, just talking and having that, kind of your vision of what community is, what connection is. And I think those are just gold in today's environment, especially when, the magic of what's going on out there. Why would somebody who's leading an AI company be talking about connection and community and those things when everybody thinks it's the exact opposite?
Yeah. Okay. And so what do you mean by that, right? So I get when you're telling me my vision of connection as an AI company, how would you describe that, since it's, our friend that's listening right now wasn't part of that original conversation, and then we'll start unpacking on how you're applying that in order to connect with your clients. Yeah.
Sure. Again, everybody has their own personal view of what AI is. And, we saw it with the commencement speeches throughout the nation, where everybody's booing the commencement speaker if they use the term AI, because everybody's super nervous. Are they even going to be able to find a job? And I get that. But what I really found intriguing about the conversation was, we're talking in our community that we met is through using your service as an AI solution to try to enable our business to go forward. And so for me, I found it really exciting that you were talking, and your passion is that community aspect. And so for me, as a user, as a business owner, it's 100% about communication. It's 100% about connection, and it's 100% about community. So why do we use AI? We use AI because I want to have more conversations, not less. I want to have more one-on-one dialogue, not less. So the thing I tell our team is, hey, use AI for what it's really good at, executing and delivering tasks, but then don't miss the focal point, which is, I've got to talk to the persons and the people that are involved in this business. And it's to eliminate the redundancy and the day-to-day tasks to be able to enable more communication, not less. And I think that's what's beautiful about it.
As you know, I completely agree with that. Talk to me about what you were just saying a second ago, how the reason why you land clients is because you connect. You said that you have like a way of like, is there a do you follow a specific approach? Like, do you have like a how you connect with people? Is it a philosophy of how you connect with people? Kind of describe to me this idea of like you I mean, you just told me before we started
Yeah.
recording that you land about 70% of the deals that you get a chance to connect with.
Yeah, when we have a meaningful conversation, when they give me 30 minutes or more, we're going to connect. And really what it's about, because it's not about me, it's about listening to what they are trying to get and what they're trying to solve. I mean, they can go to any property manager they want, they can go to anybody else, and they're going to provide, I believe, a quality service at a fair price. But the difference is that what we try to do is say, hey, look, what you're really getting is me. And what you're really getting is my team. And what you're really getting is our execution and ability to communicate and execute on the plans that we put forth. So it's not necessarily that, hey, I've got great tools, I've got great this. No, no. I've got great processes that are going to be able to give you a consistent, replicatable experience in every scenario that you're going to have and when you manage your property and when we manage your property, I guess I should say. So for me, it's about understanding what their pain points are, understanding their fears, because most people are afraid of property managers. Like, yeah, I've got some magical power that's going to make my eyes go in opposite directions and be able to, hypnotize them to say yes. But it's really the exact opposite. What we do is we listen, we try to engage, and we try to say, hey, what's your pain point? And let's talk through that. In the worst case scenario, let's talk through that, because we have nothing to hide. Let's talk about what the tough things are and get those tough conversations front and center. And I think that's, one of the things we did well with your team was, hey, look, we're all for, using, Vendoroo, but what does that really mean? And what does that really do? And what do we really want out of it? And that was, where I think your team shown a difference than the other folks out there, because I said, I just want you to give me more time to talk to people. And I don't know how you guys look at it, but
I, I mean, we definitely look at it that's this the same exact way, right? Like we are, like we started, right? Like our point of view is this idea that the world is moving towards automation of tasks, and there's two types of people. There's a type of business owner that wants to automate things so they can automate themselves away from people, and then there's the type of business owner that wants to automate things towards people.
yeah,
And in property management specific, to exactly what you're saying, it is the most emotional asset class, right? Like like I can't imagine a service that puts themselves in the crosshairs of more stakeholders with competing priorities at higher stakes of emotions, right? Like you could say a surgeon is like highest stakes of emotions, but nobody is competing priorities with the surgeon. Everybody wants to get their life saved, right?
that's right.
Like everybody
That's right.
wants to get the person healthy, right? A rental property owner, a rental property investor is trying to do one thing that could be, not exactly in line with what the resident is looking for, which is not exactly in line with what a vendor is looking for. And the property manager is in the middle of those three things. And at the
Yeah,
same time, for a renter, it's their sense of shelter and safety that's at stake. For the
yeah,
for the investor, it's
yeah,
their biggest investment, right? Like, like few people own a more expensive stock than their rental property,
that's right.
like, and for a vendor, like these are small business livelihood kind of like businesses that, with low margins. So there's a lot at
Yeah,
stake here, man. And like you're saying, it's really about allowing the capacity to have those meaningful conversations, to let the property manager have the bandwidth emotionally and time wise to treat things not all the same, to treat
yeah,
special circumstances specially, and everything else just gets done. But back to what you're saying, what I find really interesting is that you've uncovered again, I don't know, I still don't know if it's a process or a philosophy when you have these sales conversations with your
Oh,
investors that
it's
is also a good procurement philosophy for you too, right? So what were you gonna say? Would you call it a philosophy?
I think it's
Process?
both. Look,
Yeah,
I certainly have a process to walk them through and make
yeah,
sure we touch on what makes us different and what are their typical fears and concerns and hangups, and are they going to be able to get a call from somebody in their worst case scenario, or is somebody just going to not call them back? And
mhm,
those are the fears that people have when it's
yeah,
the investor side. I'm never going to hear from you. You're never going to tell me anything. You're just going to spend my money and do all these things, and I'm not going to lose complete control.
mhm,
And that's where we say, hey, look, we're not going anywhere.
mhm,
Look at us online, find us. You can find me. You can reach out and touch me. I'm not going anywhere. I've got
yeah,
25 years of history in Las Vegas that you can look up and see. So don't. That's not something you need to worry about with us.
yeah,
And then the connection is listening to them and responding to what their fears are, because their fears are consistently, like you mentioned, passion about, hey, I'm nervous. I've got a $500,000 asset that I'm entrusting you to. What are you going to do with it? And, we like to say, hey, look, we're going to do everything we can to maximize the return on that asset and mitigate risk. And we're going to work hard to do that. And that's why for us, it's about that connection, to listen to their fears, listen to their concerns, and then address them in a way that they can understand and they can hear. Everybody wants to say, hey, I've got a sales process or a sales philosophy. Mine is really, hey, let's make sure we touch on your hot buttons. And
mhm,
then at the end of it, let's wrap with, what's most important for you? And did we
yeah,
cover them?
yeah,
And giving them that reassurance that they're being heard in this scenario.
mhm,
And people want to be heard, you know?
yeah, yeah. When you're talking right now, like it reminds me of this quote that I heard once at this event by a guy called Dean Graziosi. That's not really my super cup of tea, but when he said this, I like really perked up in my chair, and it was people don't follow, trust, do business with people that they feel like they understand. They follow, trust, and do business with people feel that that understand them, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I'm hearing from you is you kind of have like I'm already hearing a framework, right? Like you have a framework of like opening up with what's important to you, sharing what's important to the person speaking, right? Sharing kind of like the things that like answering those things and what's important to you, and then kind of like a sweep up of did we hit all these things to make sure I was really really listening to you. Is that essentially kind of like the rhythm of your sales calls?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's I'm tired of hearing myself talk, so I always want to hear somebody else,
yeah,
because I can't listen and I can't learn from what I have to say. I'm a finite person, and I only know what I know by the grace of God. It's more about how can I listen and hear something that I don't know, and
yeah,
that's where it gets exciting in that communication. And people say, hey, look, I need to make this amount of money, or I need to mitigate this risk, or I had a
yeah,
really bad, or whatever those things are. I think it's really just allowing them to get comfortable to share their fears with you. And most people, when it comes to kind of that sales, if you will, call, they don't want to do that. And I just take it and turn it on its head and say, hey, look, we're here to, do two things, provide a return and mitigate risk. So where are you feeling that those are aligning with your goals and efforts? And
mm,
that's what makes it, fun and exciting when you get somebody on the phone. Because I think it's fun. It's fun to talk to people. It's fun to talk to you. It's fun
yeah,
to be in that engagement methodology. But it is absolutely wrote in, I'm going to cover these 10 things, not 10, more like five, but and I'm going to listen for these three key things.
mm.
What are their fears? what are they trying to get, and why did they pick up the phone, or why did they fill out a form, or what made them do a Google search to get to me? Those are the things I want to make sure we hear from them.
You know what I love about that last part with Thomas's conversation is that he started by talking about how he uses AI in order to have more conversations, not less. And then he leaned into the value of the conversation is having your prospects and having your customers feel like you are listening to them. And that to me really happens when you can be present. And what we see across the board in the property management industry is that most people that are checking the box with AI and having AI do a couple of things for them, helping them do things faster, they still find themselves having to manage a lot of the process. That's what happens when you're automating 60-ish% of things with AI. And when they switch over to Vendoroo and they get into those like 85, 90, 95, 98 percentile of automation, that's when that like presence gets unlocked. Because when you can really trust AI to own the outcome and not be constantly expecting it for it to ping you for something that you have to do, but make it truly a minority of like the things that happen, because most of it you can just rely on it, then you can be truly present with prospects, with clients, with your team, because you're not waiting to get pinged. You have these higher level of automations is the reason why work is transforming with AI. Everything else is just kind of like doing the same thing a little bit better. So if you want your work to truly transform with AI, you have to have those higher level of automations. That's only possible with Vendoroo. If you want to test that out, give us a test drive. Go to vendoroo.ai and hop on a demo. We'll show you how it's being done across our clientele base. We'll show you how one maintenance team member can handle 1,500 units. So if you have less than that, if you have like 600 units, then that's part-time work. It's, you know, like half a day's work for your maintenance person. They can be doing higher leverage activities, other things at that time, because they'll have an average of less than 7% of their units will have an open work order. Their work orders will be closing 40% faster. That's multiple days off of the average time it takes to close a work order. And we can get you to 85% automation in 45 days from start. Ask other people what their benchmarks are around their automation and around their AI. Compare that. Ask that to your provider if you're right now using somebody else. And if you don't get the same kind of answers, if they're not as impressive, come check us out, vendoroo.ai. Do you have like a specific way that you open the call? Like is what you just said the way that you open your calls? Like, hey, I'm here to mitigate your risk and provide returns. So tell me where you stand with that. Or do you have a different way of like getting into that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, really it's about, feeling them out and getting the vibe from them.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to keep their cards super close to the chest? So really I just say, "Hey, thanks for call. What prompted the call today? What prompted you to fill out that form, or what was it that you're looking for that made you pick up the phone and hit up an ugly kid from Jersey who's here listening to property management concerns that you have? What is it?" And really just trying to get them talking about it, because people want to tell you their fears, and most people want to tell you why they did what they did, and it's not a hard question. You're not asking them how much do you need to make, or how much, hey, why are we here?
Yeah, I like that, man. Do you really use that line of like the ugly kid from Jersey? Because I find
Oh,
that self-deprecation is one of like the ultimate connecting kind of like
Oh, it
imagery.
is. It
Yeah.
is. And look at me. Nobody wants to see me. I got two beautiful ladies I work with. They want to talk to them, but they're stuck with this guy. So it's fun, it's fun. And if you can't laugh at yourself, you're never going to laugh. And
Yeah.
you want to have fun at this. This just isn't meant to be. I mean, I get the passion and I get the fear and the anxiety that comes with renting and leasing and managing and finding a tenant. I get it all, but it still is. I'm not a surgeon, and
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, and I don't play one on TV, and I don't do any of that stuff. It's just how do we connect, and where is that connection?
So the first, I heard that self-deprecation piece is like a tool, which like immediately I can recognize it because I use it a ton. Um,
Absolutely.
the other thing that I hear is, and this is something that I talk about often, like when getting to know people, creating connections, it's don't ask questions that have like objective answers. Ask questions that lead to somebody revealing something about their priorities and like what they're looking for, right? So
Mm,
like in your question trio of like, hey, what, and my go-to conversation starter is like, what brought you here? Because it allows
yeah,
you to kind of like, you can answer that however you want, right? Like as opposed to like where you
yeah,
from or whatever, right? Like, and you've adapted to that to these kinds of calls, like, hey, so why are we on the phone, right?
yeah,
Like somebody always has a reason for being on the phone, and once you open that way, you can start picking at the yarn. It doesn't have to be such like a structured script, as much as you're just kind of like finding your own adventure of getting to those landing spots that you just said.
mm,
Like, what are their fears, what are their past experiences, what are their concerns, right?
yeah, absolutely. And I think really it's, I once heard it in a sales training that I was in back in the day that, we as people who are in the business development side, don't ask a question that you really don't know the answer to. Almost like a lawyer, you hear that in laws and movies and everything else. Why did you ask that question if you don't know the answer to it when you're in a trial? And
Mm-hmm.
I adapted that slightly to say, don't ask a question if you don't want to know the answer,
Mm-hmm.
because you're asking something that's got to be relevant to what we're talking about. And what I mean really is, why are you here, or what brought this about, or hey, you're just moving out of town and you want to lease your property because you got 3% interest rate, or whatever that genesis of the dialogue is. I'm just looking to uncover it. And it's a really fine line to be able to say, hey, I want to ask this question, but I'm really interested in the answer, not the question. So you
Yeah.
can take it wherever you go. You can run with it. I don't care if it gets us on the right track of what are you looking for. That's really what we want, because I can't help them if they don't tell me why we're here. There's 100 property managers in Vegas, and my competition is fierce, and a lot of them offer a lot less expensive services. And I just say that's good for them. That's their business model, but it's not mine, because we develop a relationship with you and we're looking out for what's best for you, and our best. So when we come to real estate, we take duties owed very, very seriously. I've got to put my owner clients goals and objectives and financial well-being before I put my own. And that duties owed aspect is a theme that runs through everything we do, because we're in real estate. And at the end of the day, if somebody says, hey, you put your goals before mine, there goes my license, there goes everything that we're doing, and our credibility is shot. So it's that theming that we really focus in on.
Yeah, in what you just said, I think it could be easy to get lost in the idea of like you're talking about a regulatory fiduciary risk, but if
Yeah,
you zoom out a little bit, what you're doing is speaking in terms of the person in front of you's priorities.
yeah.
And that lesson for me wasn't intuitive, right? Like
Mm,
I think that was probably through my 20s into my early 30s. I spoke a lot
okay.
about kind of like what I wanted, as opposed
Yeah,
to, hey, let's talk about what you want and how I fit into that. And switching that, right? Like flipping
yeah,
that, speaking in terms of the person in front of you's priorities has completely changed my life. Is that
that's right.
something that you learned from your parents? Is it something you learned from being in like tech sales early on? Like
I,
how did you learn that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I think it's really what you're brought up with, And I remember vividly, I was in early in my career, in my mid 20s, and my mom, says to me, "Hey, you don't have to do sales." And I was like, my mom was a nurse, my father was 35 years with J.C. Penney Company. They climbed the corporate ladder and did all that, and worked corporate jobs. And my mom's like, you don't have to do this business development thing. You could do something else. And I was like, Mom, don't you understand? I'm helping people. Like,
Mm,
we're making a difference in their business, and
yeah.
we're making a difference in their business, thereby giving them opportunity to get ahead, giving them opportunity to look different their peers within the company. And we looked at that, and I just always felt that I had something to bring and I had something to help them with. And if I don't, then so be it. Go find somebody else. I mean,
Yeah.
even with our tenants today, we're showing them the property, and I'll say, look, I'm not going to live here. So if this isn't right for you, don't move forward. Don't sign the lease, because
Yeah.
you've got to live here. And if you don't want to live here, don't do it. Well, that's the same thing with working in property management with investors. Look, if we're not the right guys for you, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. Go find somebody else. Because look, I get it. Look at me. People don't want to talk to me that much, but I think it's just that theming that you have. Do you fundamentally believe that you're helping people? And that is a passion of mine. That is, from my upbringing, with your father saying, hey, your mother's walking into the door. You better open that door for her, or else I'm going to make sure the back of your head's a little flatter than it already is.
Yeah.
I don't know if your parents were that way. They kind of, taught you that value of what it means to help other people.
Yeah, man. I kind of, right? Like what my upbringing was very much, my mom was is very much like a it's not, so the term socialite isn't right. But my mom is the type of person that knows the name of like the kids and grandkids of the lady at CVS that develops her pictures for the last 20 years. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
my mom is the type of person that so this is the
she's
type
in
of,
the fabric of the community.
yeah, she just she very much, she has very much always understood the value of the personal touch for people and seeing people, and that leading to good things for her in like her ability to like have access and do favors for others, right? Like she's always had like the service mindset. I don't think they ever I don't think she ever like outwardly set out to teach me that stuff. I think I just learned by being around her so much from being the youngest.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I learned it. I learned it much more through osmosis. And then my dad was like the entrepreneur that I always wanted to be like as a powerful businessman. And now I tell my mom this all the time. The older I get, the more I want to grow up to be like you.
Yeah,
Like so it was a lot more, through osmosis because I was the youngest, and so I could like get away with whatever I wanted, and I was already like a likable kid, right? So for me in reality, Tom, is like I had to like unlearn a certain amount of selfishness because I always, since I learned it through osmosis, I just thought about it as like I just saw the benefit in it, and I saw the
yeah,
benefit to me. And then it wasn't until like my early 30s getting involved in nonprofits when I realized two things. One is by the time I was on the board of Habitat for Humanity, I started realizing that my like Ace Ventura bachelor party shtick really had a shelf life. Like
right.
the president of Bank Atlantic didn't want to talk about
That's
that
right.
stuff. Whereas the people on the boards of these charities that I started to serve on, all to a T, would say I got to where I am by helping other people. And then I
Mhm.
started realizing like my speech pattern had to become more like interested in others to then become valuable long term. So it was a very circuitous way. I learned it by modeling it, but because nobody really taught it to me outright, I kind of like used that power for like selfish reasons. And then I
Yeah.
realized that like using it to serve is when it really kind of like scales and leads to like the things that you really, really want.
Yeah, and I think people sense it. I don't know if it's just a
Yeah.
spirit within us.
Yeah.
You kind of feel that, everybody likes to give used car sales guys the hard time, or the BD, or the
Mhm.
VP or president that's just out for themselves. For me, it was always, I just got a real kick out of seeing success in other people
Yeah.
and seeing them achieve. And, now in this business, seeing the technology to be able to deliver a great solution for somebody, to be able to say, hey, that really is meaningful to me, and I really feel good by working with that's exciting. That's fun, because you're able to say, hey, look, we had a little part of that. And when owners call me and say, hey, look, we're going to buy another property and we want you to manage it. That's the greatest affirmation I can get, that we're actually doing what we set out to do, was to develop relationships, make a difference in here, and really connect with people. And right now, with the success that we had and continue to have, we're not the biggest, we may not be the best, but we sure as heck care the most, and we just want to deliver great things for people, because if I get great things for somebody else, they're gonna remember that, and they're gonna help me achieve the things that we're trying to achieve. And it's fun. At the end of the day, we can all do a lot of things with the time that we have. I just don't want to necessarily trade time for money, man. you
Yeah,
know
yeah,
let's
yeah.
stop trading time for money, called a salary, called I show up, I've got to do these 50 things.
Yeah,
No, no. Where am I making an impact? How's the charity that I'm working with? How's my team getting ahead? How's my people getting promoted? How my owners being more successful? That is true value, true leadership, and true success. It's just fun.
yeah, yeah. I love that, man, and I love
Yeah,
how that kind of brings us back to the beginning of the conversation of like, if you can use technology to free yourself up from like the task doing layer and invest in relationships, there's just much more meaning that can come out of it, right?
absolutely.
And that's the game you're playing.
Yeah.
I would
And I
love
mean, that's why, when we looked at working with you guys, we
Yeah,
figured, hey, look, every time we get a request for service, I have 12 phone calls, 12, at a minimum, more like 15 to 18, depending upon if they have a home warranty or those other things. And I was like, this is just not sustainable. I can't talk to an owner 4 times and tell them, blah, 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 blah. And they're going to go, yeah, you're adding value to my life. No, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, let's have one great conversation and let's talk about the end game there, and finish it.
yeah,
And that's meaningful. That's
yeah.
impactful.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. I do want to go into just your overall view of like technology in the future, right? I would say like this to me, this episode, I would say this first half of the episode is very much like value-based selling, right?
Yeah,
Like how like that the fact that you don't have to be a used car salesman to close deals, right?
right.
And how, like relationship-based selling. I would say I'd love to use your point of view on where you thought the world was going that made you want to buy a property management franchise with with real property management. You told me
Yeah.
you want to talk me through that. Like that's what you told me about in Long Beach. So I was like, oh man, we got to have this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, as we talked about, everybody can be kind of the Sunday afternoon armchair quarterback in, the rearview mirror of what's
yeah,
happened. But really, when I was looking at everything, I really felt, there was 4 key industries that were just going to blow up. When marketing and technology were coming together, and, that area, content was going to be huge. It was
mhm,
just blatantly obvious that content was going to be huge. I did a stint with Switch here, which is a big data center company. There it was all about energy. It was all about, power. How am I going to get power into these locations, and how are we going to do that in the data center explosion? The third one was, how am I going to go out in this business and be able to look at ways in which all these things are converging into a single entity, whether that's a data center, a chipset, or something like that. We were all, where is it going to end? I don't know. And then really the fourth one for me was services. People are going to differentiate themselves through services. And, you can look at the prognosticators from 20 years ago saying, oh yeah, these are all the things. But I really looked at those things as that's where it's going. And so when I look today and say, hey, data centers, AI, all of these things, where is it really going? It's going to service. There's no other way around it. It's going to be about who's going to provide, because I can buy the same chipset, same data center, get the same power
yeah,
everywhere in the world. Eventually, we're going to
yeah,
solve that. And we're going to figure that out, because the mother of solving problems is necessity. And America's a great country. We're going to figure this out. So where's it going to go? It's going to be service. And I do not believe that AI is going to take over everything. I just don't. I don't see that. I really see it as a service business. And if I can offer a service business in this space where you've got the conversion of investors, where you've got the conversion of wealth accumulation, where you've got the convergence of real estate, and where you've got all these different swirling businesses that are going to be severely disrupted by technology, it's the one who's going to be able to deliver and cut through the noise that's going to say, hey, I don't know, but I know who has it. And when I looked at it and started looking at all these different businesses, I just said, who's got a system that's having success, that's replicatable, can hand me the playbook and I can execute on it? That's what I'm looking for. And it ended up being Real Property Management. They just gave me the playbook, and I was like, hey, I can execute. I can absolutely execute. And that's how I got into this business. And look, it's an ugly business. It's a tough business. Dealing with people is tough, and the passion you already shared, it's tough. Having people yell at you for you didn't do anything wrong, it's tough not to get upset. But it's okay because we've got a process and a system that's going to listen, that's going to respond, and is going to execute. So our philosophy is, hey, when we mess up, we fess up. When we're about delivering that value and that mitigation, and that's what it's about for everybody we meet. So everything we're trying to do in this service business is fundamentally built on those two things. We used to say, and this is part of this future, hey, we follow the golden rule. We can't follow the golden rule. Nobody can follow the golden rule. It's impossible. So what do? We simply say to everybody, we're going to try to follow the platinum rule. Platinum rule is we're going to try to give you what you're looking for. And I think we can do that better than anybody else. So the future to me is services, is delivery, and is execution. And I can give you examples of where that is coming about in our market today.
Man, I love that POV, right? So one of my favorite things of particularly when I'm dealing in the franchise operator space that I find different from the general property management space is that there's a lot of accidental property managers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That became that. There's some of them are great operators, right? Like, but the people that get into it deliberately all have a thesis around why they did it, right? And it's usually it's what's different about you is that usually the thesis is related to liking the business model, liking the lifestyle, like what it can do for you. Yours speaks to my heart because I'm very much like a visionary type person. Yours is
Yeah,
like this is where the world is going, and I want to put myself at the convergence of all these different forces. And
absolutely.
I find that super interesting, right? Because you think there's a guy like you that's coming from the technology space, like you used to sell technology, to look at it and think, man, it's going to be about content and enablement of content. It's going to be about power enablement, and then it's going to become about service. Like you went into the lowest tech part of it, right? And what it sounds like to me, it sounds a lot like what we're seeing right now. Even in it's almost like a first principle that goes across all things, right? Like even in the technology piece, it's like everybody uses fundamentally the same artificial intelligence. It's all about who's building a wrapper around like how well you can use it, and that's the version of service in the world of like Vendoroo. For you, the
Yeah,
version of service is like, hey, I want to put myself in the middle of like the most complex coordination equation and the
yeah,
hardest thing to provide a good experience in. And like you said, it's just execution, right? Like it's service and experience and how well you can make people feel. So it's just like a really interesting kind of like take on landing on this thing of I want to go do the hard thing to make it feel easy because that's where value comes essentially, right? The mother of
absolutely.
invention.
Absolutely. And look, most people in our property management business are there to facilitate some other aspect of it, like you mentioned, where, hey, I want to be a property manager because I want to sell 100 properties a year,
Yeah.
or I want to be a property manager because I want to, buy properties for investors and work with investors, and then continue on this journey of getting what they really want, which is enablement in a different area. We just look at it fundamentally different. If we're in a service business and we're able to execute on it, then there's going to be more and more opportunities that are going to come as a result of being in a service business. At the end of the day, we're deficient in, our trades. Where are our trades going? Everybody knows that we need more plumbers, we need more electricians, we need more skilled pool people, we need more of those service delivery executions, because people aren't going to be able to come out with a robot or somebody else and just say, hey, I'm going to rewire this whole house. It's not going to happen. People need to have the ability to take the head knowledge, the book knowledge, and apply it in a way that makes sense. And I just see that in this space, because we're going to have to take the intuitive nature of people and put it together with the technology that's out there to be able to give the outcome. I mean, as you and I talked about your solution, why is your solution working 10 times better now than when we first started? Because I put my thoughts into it and our experiences into the tool to be able to make it do what I want it to do for each one of my owners. So owner one says, hey, I only use, Freddie as my handyman, and I only want Freddie going out there. Well, we've got to be able to create an experience that does that. And we've got to be able to create that opportunity to do that. So when I use your tool and I only send Freddie out to this one property of the 150 plus properties that I manage, that's really powerful, because the owner's going, yes, I got Freddie. Yes, I got what I want with this real property management piece. That's what I'm looking for. That's awesome. And I can trust them, and I feel good about it because they give me the service. They give me the process that I really want. And that connection is the difference maker.
Yeah, I think the idea that the lowest hanging fruit here right now, not the thing that the effect of AI in property management right now is taking something that from needing to be a standardized experience to the ability of creating a customizable experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now that AI can do all the different things,
Yeah.
is at the foundational shift right now. And you just explained that really, really well. Your ability to, not just have to use one handyman for all things, but to be able to give that one owner the one handyman that he wants without it breaking your whole system and without it breaking, like your ability to deliver, to us, that's like the at the core of the problem that we solve, like how to make it yours when it comes to maintenance, which is so complex. And that's like, to me, phase one of where all this is going. It's like
Yeah.
we're finally stepping into giving the market what it's always wanted. That's phase one. And then you and I spoke about kind of like a couple of different phases beyond that, right? Like, what is your, what for me, I have a hard time, like really dialing it in more than just like, hey, right now there's only one kind of property management. It's either professionally managed or not, with a couple nuances, but the future is going to be a lot of different styles. And you have like one in mind that I thought was really, really interesting. You want to share that with me?
Well, I'm not sure which one you mean, but I
Yeah.
think I really believe
Yeah.
that this business is ripe for technology, ripe for the next gen, which is being able to plug into all the different facets of it, whether that's preventative maintenance, whether that's experiential things, whether that's I only am looking for this, and doing it in the guise of I've got all these different aspects of what I want, and I want to be able to bring it forth to me as an individual investor. And so I really see, the baby boomers are exiting, and there's ripe for consolidation there, and then ripe for process improvement. And we see that people are afraid of the future. And that means I don't want to talk to somebody who's an AI. I want to talk to a person. And so I just see the consolidation all coming to a point where you've got to have this back to the communication to that. And I'm not sure if that's exactly what you and I were leaning into, but I just believe it's that consolidation of all these different whirlwinds that are going to come in. And is somebody going to be able to replace us with an AI tool long term? Yeah, they probably could. I mean, look, there's national people that don't give the service that we give. And that's great for some people who are looking for down and dirty and don't care and don't want to invest and all those things. That's not us. And we're never going to be the low cost guy. And we're never going to be, hey, don't invest in your property. That's not where we're going. We're going the exact opposite. You want to give a great experience that's going to dynamically change people's lives, your tenants' lives, your business, your family, and your wealth accumulation. That's us.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where we're going to
Super
differentiate.
personalized boutique service, really valuable on an interpersonal level.
Yeah,
We'll always at the very least give you the breadcrumbs of what's next,
that's
proximity to
right.
yours.
That's right. And so I don't know, where do you think? I mean, you're in this space. You're probably closer to it than I am. I always want to hear your insight. Where's it
Yeah.
go?
Man,
What's phase two you talked about?
I might be misremembering, right? But like I know that for us, some of the things I see could happen, right? It's this like super niche, like population based service, right? I think David Norman, our chief PM, he makes the example of like if you want to be the most dog friendly property manager, you could build a business that is owners of properties that love dogs, that have renters that have dogs, that you also provide mobile grooming service, that you also provide, like these like meetups and these pop-up dog park experiences and all these kinds of things. Other
Yeah,
ones can be like very, very like hospitality driven, like these kind of like funny niches where it's just like one person and you're not growing by market share, you're growing by like share of wallet and services that you can give to people,
yeah.
is something. And I don't know, I guess I was, I thought I might be misremembering, but I thought that you and I had a conversation where you brought up a business model that was kind of like that. That was like a deep niche into something. Am I misremembering?
Yeah, so where we're thinking, and always looking for ways is we're providing all these services. So I can, lease, manage, and maintain properties for anybody within my service area and do it really, really efficiently and deliver a great service because we've got great team members and really good vendors that we hold accountable. I think there's a couple of, like you said, niche services where we do that. Certainly our vacant caretaker program is one. Hey, I've got a property. I don't want to lease it out, but what I really don't want to do is have it sit there with nobody in it for the next 2 years or between my next visit. And so Vegas being a destination location, we've got people that fly in 3 times a year, but they want somebody to manage it. So we offer a vacant caretaker program. The other one that we're getting into is because our parents are kind of getting to that age that we're looking at.
Yeah.
We were talking about Sun City as a retirement community right here, right next to us. And, we're trying to develop a relationship with people that are going in and making those, properties senior friendly. So they're
Mhm.
putting handles in the shower, they're putting handles in the loo, they're putting all these different things to try to help them. And we're sitting there saying they need more help than that. They need more. They can still live on their own. They can still, go to the grocery store and do those things, but they can't get on a ladder to replace the HVAC. And
Mhm.
so, how do we offer elder care for, our retirement community that's coming to Vegas? And we really believe it's that aspect of being able to say to them, hey, you've got, a need and I've got all the resources to fill it. So if you want me to come one day a week, I'll be a concierge service for you. You want cleaning, you want, repair, you want all those things, call me. We'll put you on a monthly service and take the worry of your children off, that they're not getting on a ladder and they're not having to replace the light bulbs at the top of the stairs. We're going to do it all for them. And that's really the next genesis of where we see kind of our business going, is offering our services into different verticals within the real estate market to be able to deliver long term. And that's a powerful thing.
That was it, my friend. Yeah, like
There you go.
that's just like take my money right now, man. Like, how do I
Yeah,
invest in your company?
absolutely.
Do you want a partner to build this? Right? Like to me, it's so genius when you can think of this to me is right. This is right at the crux of the premise of my show. This idea of property management frame breakers are just like break beyond the frame of like what property management like is to everybody because it's rapidly changing, right? Like first
Mm,
phase is this mass customization. Next phase is how do you really just take advantage of all the resources that you have into building these businesses that completely differentiate you, that 10x the stack of value. I look at a property manager and I think of somebody that's aging in place. Like you said, step one, they need to adapt the home, right? They need to put in ramps. They need to maybe like a chair lift if it's a two-story home. They need to like put the handles in there. You have the resources
yeah,
to do that. Once you do that, if you have like you can keep um your tech's busy, kind of like just showing up at these different houses, like, hey, what do you need help with that you haven't been doing so you don't get up on a chair? It even bleeds into this idea of just like peace of mind that like if my, you know, God forbid I have one parent left and they're living by themselves, just someone checking in on them every like 3 days to make sure that they didn't
yeah,
fall 2 days ago.
yeah,
Like I mean, that's valuable, man. And that's the type of stuff that, right now, if you were to combine it with other industries, you right now you have assisted living and not assisted living, right? Like there
yeah,
isn't this kind of like hybrid, just like scattered site assisted living kind of like framework
absolutely.
that you're talking about, man. It just seems like a $1 billion category when you're talking about it
It
that way.
is. It
Yeah.
is. It's just, and then certainly there's peripheral services that come. But again, it ties to our fundamental belief of, look, I'm in this business not to just rape and pillage and put money in my pocket. I'm in this business because I believe in it and I believe we can do it differently. And I believe we can serve it that platinum rule of how do we engage with people and give them what they want. And if I can help seniors, I mean, at the end of the day, if somebody would have called me in 3 years and say, "Hey, look, my parents had an experience with you guys that changed the dynamic of the end of their life because they were able to stay in their home for an extra 2 years. They were able to create this experience, and I felt safe, and they felt safe. And there's something powerful in the ability to have a home. I have an associate who told me about they had a friend who he was a Vietnam vet, and he was like, all I want to do is live in my own home.
Yeah.
That's it, man. Help
Yeah.
me get there. And he was like, wow, yes, let's go. Let's make that happen. And that aspect of changing lives and doing it differently and bringing it to fruition is truly, truly why we're here. Back to the whole theme of this conversation is people and communication and
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
I want to
And
be in a place
service.
that's like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
be part of a community where we're helping each other, man. Where,
Yeah.
where someday I'm going to need help, and I hope I'm going to call Pablo, and he's going to say, "Let's do it. Let's figure
Yeah.
this out," and we'll
Yeah.
do something like that, man. That's exciting. That really is what gets you up in the morning, ready for whatever frustrations and passion people are going to bring your way.
Yeah. And to me, the through line in the entire conversation, right? Like we started kind of talking about how you sell, and now we're talking about how like this like future pacing vision, but it's all
Absolutely.
what I think the through line here is this idea of like when you attach, how can I be the most of service possible? And that is the goal, right? Like how do you show up in the service of others as opposed to the service of yourself and attaching yourself to that? That's when it unlocks these like extraordinary results from a super high
Yeah,
close rate to this like very, very compelling business that you're describing too,
yeah,
that I think would be an extraordinary business multiple if you actually crack that operationally, man.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's those things again. How do we listen to people and say, "Hey, we can help.
Yeah.
We can help,"
Yeah.
rather than saying, "Hey, look, I got a round hole and you either fit in it or you're out." And, let's make a difference, man. Let's have an opportunity to do it. And so I want to hear next time we talk, Pablo, about what the vision is for AI changing the dynamic experience of people and conversations. Because
Oh,
that to me is the scratching the surface of really what's next.
I'm ready to have that conversation right now.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
listen, man, I'll tell you this. Where I in my I think I have phase one figured out, and maybe phase two of like where I fit into all of this. But
Yeah,
like, I'll tell you, in my world, right? In property management, event marketing has a big part to play, right?
yeah,
Like how you show up and whatnot. And in the world of event marketing, you can probably relate to this. You go to a broker owner, you go to an RPM reunion, you go to whatever, you meet 30 vendors, you set follow-up appointments with like 15, 16, 18 of them, and you're going to show up to about 6 of those. Right?
right.
I think that the lowest hanging fruit of creating something that can enable relationships looks like a wearable AI like a Plod, that when you get in conversations with people, it can start to segment you into, like what bucket you fit into in relation to like how valuable it is to my life and how much I want to pursue this conversation. In event marketing, very easy to do that, right? Like it's like
Right.
ICP, are you like in my ideal client profile? Are you not? Are you in a buying cycle? Are you not? And an agent that can do that and then start to like build a relationship with you immediately based on me following up with you that night of like, hey, this is what we talked about. And by the way, this is what I'm up to the next couple of days, and inviting you to those things, maybe sending you a gift so that by the time you get back to your office, you're like, oh man, I really like that guy. And he thought of me. And, like these kinds of things, and getting someone to show up to the next meeting to me is like a very like low hanging fruit of something that agentic AI can solve in relationships, right? Like how do you keep a relationship warm in a genuine way based on
Mhm.
like my ability for, right, ChatGPT to do deep research on you and like check out the things that you're going on, maybe throughout like a yearly maintenance of like a relationship, like going from like customer from CRMs, like customer relationship management, to
Yeah,
customer relationship development, right? Like of keeping up with people, and like let's say I find out that you got a kid that's graduating middle school, or like they just made the travel team of something, and I send you like a clip of them or something to go to, right? Like, and I have like a certain segmentation of like, yeah, Thomas is a relationship that's worth, I don't know, 5 grand a year to me, because so like if there's the right time to buy you something and send you some, right? Like to me, that kind of thing, I think that that's going to start happening, right? Like the mix of like giftology and unreasonable hospitality done by
yeah,
agents, contextual to like the things that you care about is happening. I really want to build that product, man.
yeah. No, there's something magical there. I read
Yeah,
today. They were the Apple Developer Conference. How they were really disappointed they didn't bring out the aspect of, the glasses aspect of it with
yeah,
Apple and the future of
yeah,
what they're doing there. And I think it's interesting, but the biggest problem they were trying to solve is exactly what you talk about, is how do you sift through and navigate the content to which you're listening to
yeah,
that's really important and not really important. So as
yeah,
my phone's ringing 20 times during this time together,
yeah,
what's really important that I need to get now, and
yeah,
what needs to be noise that can be addressed after that. And that aspect of understanding the human psyche of what's there is truly powerful. So for me, the way I interpret that and the way I describe it is, people do not read anymore. So me sending the email to them is fundamentally a waste of time because they
mhm,
don't read it. And I get that. So what do? We need to do video. We need to do, direct one-on-one conversations, or the Loom model of the world, right? Put the Loom
yeah,
out there in a one-to-one relationship with video. But
yeah,
even that's stale and static because, hey, I don't like him. He doesn't have enough energy. He's not powerful enough. Whatever it is, it just
yeah,
doesn't sink that hook in deep enough for them to listen to. Is
yeah,
truly what makes the communication aspect so difficult to replicate. And
yeah,
that's where you raising the bar of what's truly meaningful, as you clearly articulated, and then being able to filter that at a cadence that's replicatable is powerful. Because we send gifts to people and they don't even acknowledge that we sent them a gift, and it's like,
mhm,
did the gift suck? Like, do we not give them the right thing? What
yeah,
is it? Or is it, look, they're just too busy.
yeah,
It didn't ring. It didn't hammer home for them. So I always look at it, the opportunities on me to interpret that and come back to them.
yeah.
And that is the power of what's next. That's going to be fun. And that's why I think voice is going to be the biggest differentiator in the next 12 months. I know everybody's saying it, but it's all voice.
Yeah.
Stop typing on your computer,
Yeah.
start talking.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if within 12 months you are driving, like you're driving to your office and all you're saying is like you're talking to your car and saying, "Hey, what are the things I need to be thinking about when I get into the office?" And the car, like Vendoroo car app
Yeah.
responds and says, "Hey, you got these things outstanding." It's like, "Oh, cool." Like, like for that one, just make sure you send this message. Like you're still driving, you're just having a
Yeah.
conversation with like your assistant that is handling things based on what you're saying. And then as soon as you walk into the office, you're already like on third base on, like 70% of your tasks for the
Yeah.
day, and then you get in and now you get into your visual interface of things that you got to see. And then you like move through those tasks. And then the rest of the time is really just relationship building, right? Like it's all playing offense, man. Like I think that that's coming.
Yeah, that's the fun stuff. And when I was in my first executive role, I learned really quickly that my assistant administrator was 10 times better at booking appointments than I was.
Oh yeah.
And she had the script of, "Hey, I'm calling from Thomas Patchin's office, and he'd like to set up a time with you next Tuesday or Thursday between 10 and 2. What works?" And she would close those appointments no matter who it was. And I
Wow.
was like, why? She was smart and she just picked up the phone and had that cordial,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to get it done." And it wasn't me trying to get in there. It
Yeah.
was, I got my advocate called an assistant doing that. And that is going to come back in a big way. And I believe in, the power of the phone is coming and it's
Yeah.
coming back. And I just, it's not here yet, but I think it's coming back, man. So
I'm
I
into it,
can't
man.
wait to see Vendoroo being my go-to gal that I can go, or guy or assistant or whatever term,
Whichever you choose.
whatever it is, or
Yeah.
or the proper pronouns, I don't know. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, hey, call up, Pablo, and get me a time with him when I'm down in Jacksonville, Florida. Let's go, and
Yeah.
that's going to be fun and exciting.
Heck yeah,
Now I
man.
know they have it today, but anyways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think that's where
Mm.
it's going, man. I wouldn't be surprised if I like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we're there in a year. Not that it's not on our roadmap in the next like month, but like the idea that we could be there in a year, it's with how quickly everything is moving,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
That's very
crazy.
roadmap.
Well, I
Thomas, this
remember
was awesome,
this
man.
week. Yeah, this
Yeah.
week. Let me just share one more thing with you.
Yeah, please, please, please.
It was, my partner and wife, and the one that I begged to marry me.
Rachel.
I was down on a knee.
Yeah.
I was begging, "Please marry me." She came to me and she said, "Hey, I just want you to know that this is crazy what just happened." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "We had a really difficult investor and a really difficult tenant, and I called, and Vendoroo came in, and I gave, our vendor who is called Gracie. I gave Gracie three things to do. And by the time I got back from my run, all three were done. And she took the next two steps, and I didn't do any of it." And I was like, "Wow, that's awesome. What happened next?" And she's like, "I called the owner and said, 'What'd you think?' And they were like, 'Oh, it was great. Now let me tell you about my daughter.'" And it was like, holy smokes, that's what we want, the completeness of the solution, to be able to deliver, to be able to talk to them, is what powerful is. So just wanted to share that with you. Thank you for your tool and your service. We love working with you guys. It's been great talking with you today.
Yeah, you too, man. And I know how valuable that little soundbite is for me, man. So
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you for sharing that. And I just
Absolutely.
gotta say,
Share that
man,
with the team, because it's been a road, and it's just 100 times better than I thought it was going to be. Man, that's cool.
well, I'll tell you, man. It's hanging out with you and Paige this last week. It's always, like I said, my superpower is like to see
Yeah,
like what I fall in love with people for, right? And
yeah,
generally it's something that I really want for myself. the two of you, the way that you work together, like I don't know how you work together on a day-to-day basis, but I can tell you that like interacting with you guys for a couple of days, it's very much like the model of, of communication and like just energy and vibe that you guys have together, spending time with the two of you. It's clear that you're very much on the same page. You're both these like very kind communicators. Like you have this kind of like way about you that makes you feel really, really comfortable. And it's something that I really, really strive for, man. So I really enjoyed the time we got to spend together. I'm
Well,
really pumped that we got to spend time together
that's
because now
great.
that means I get to come to Vegas and doing a dinner there, and we
Well,
can
let's
really do
go. Come to
something.
Vegas. Let's
Yeah,
do a dinner, man. I love
that,
it.
that's
I
for
got
sure
resume
gonna
points
happen.
we got to burn, so let's go.
That's for sure gonna happen. That's for sure gonna happen. And I'm really excited for the future of our relationship. Tom,
Absolutely.
with you, with Paige, with Vendoroo, like all the stuff, man. I'm really, really looking forward to. So thanks for doing this, man.
Absolutely. Anything we can do to help, we're here.